I guess I don't know why the city has been honing in on this. There's another building in town that actually did fall into another person's business, and um it's a danger to anybody who's sitting there. They haven't warned the public. They haven't put barricades. They put barricades around my building 2 years plus before bricks fell. And um, you know, after their first engineer's report, that was a good report. It said that, the engineer's stamped report said that the building posed no danger to the public or the occupants. And then I worked on a list of things to do because I had just purchased that building, and I was already doing one of the things that they had suggested is trying to I was trying to do it, but the city was stopping me, is to tuck the point the bricks to keep water from going behind them, and get things sealed up, caulked, and then eventually possibly change the north wall to metal. Well, after delays and things, then I had no choice. I would have had to change the north wall of one of the buildings to metal. But since they didn't allow me to do anything for 4.5+ years, I didn't get to keep the water out of the other building, and the bricks actually fell off of my business side first in May of 2024. They gave me permission to come back to town, and I got written permission to come back into the county and into town in 2024. And I've been really learned a lot. I had asked somebody about why I have to have a permit to, caulk windows or to put a downspout up or to tuck point bricks, because that just doesn't seem right. And I couldn't get permission from the city. I couldn't get a permit, and I didn't want to become a felon because I knew I'd have to touch the building more than 5 times. Well, excuse me. So I found out that you don't need a permit to do those things. And what they've done since 2024 was they took me to court, but I'd hired an attorney, and that attorney went on vacation, and I didn't know. He just took my retainer, and then he was gone and didn't answer any calls or emails. And finally, a few weeks went by, and a couple weeks went by, and his secretary answered and said that he was on vacation. I tried to file for continuance, but the court doesn't allow you to do that if somebody's put in their name as your attorney on your case. So he had filed an appearance and left. And so he continued to stay on my case. So I couldn't put my motion in to ask the judge if we could continue and I could get an attorney who would be abreast to it. So the day we were in court, um, he withdrew. He didn't show up, and I had an attorney with me to ask for the continuance. And when my attorney asked for the continuance, because he was not abreast of the situation, he was just somebody that I had used for one of my dad's guardianships or something. And so he asked for the continuance. Mike Stevens for the city resisted that motion, and the judge ordered in the favor of the city because she he had mentioned there was a gas leak, and he resisted based on the fact that public safety, the whole town, he said, could have blown to smithereens. He said there was a gas leak at my building, that a brick had fallen that week. And by the time then, she based that decision on, making me go forward without my information, without an attorney there and that knew about the situation. Um, I was made to go forward with the court case that day, and Mr. Stevens didn't produce anything saying that they're proving there was a gas leak. However, the judge believed the witnesses when even though they weren't even there, uh, so they could testify that they saw a gas leak or were part of a gas leak. They just testified there was a gas leak. And so I got out of court and I asked and I called Northwestern or electric company and I actually back up while I'm on the stand. I said I didn't know of a gas leak and I was kind of being badgered by the city's attorney. He just kept slamming papers on the desk and looking at me, telling me there was a gas leak. But when the judge told me to answer, I said I didn't even hear a question. Like, if he, are you asking me, like, when was this gas leak? And he said he didn't remember. Then he said, obviously, a day you weren't there. Or no, he said, it must be a day you weren't there. And the truth of the matter is that, so I had asked him those questions. When was it? And I said, are you telling me there's a gas leak? Like, are you notifying me right now that there's a gas leak? And then the judge got upset with me for asking that question because he just kept stating things to me. He never really asked about the gas leak. So I said, if the question is if there's a gas leak, the answer is no. I was there pretty much all week. I had even spent the night. Excuse me. And so um the utility company never called either. So I didn't say that in court, but I just said no, there was. So then afterwards, I'm on with the utility company, and I get told that there was the reason they didn't call me or the account holder or clear the area, like their protocol is to clear 330 feet. And my other son works across the street from my buildings, and nothing was cleared. No no fire trucks, nothing like that all week that anybody could remember. And she said there was no gas leak and that they had removed the meter because someone from the city had requested it, an attorney. Well, that would be Mike Stevens. And so even though he said he couldn't remember what day they had to remove service and they had to remove the gas leak, he said they even shut off the service and that they shut it off at the street, which isn't true because I found out the way to shut it off at the street is to dig it up and retire the line and cap it off. And those are Northwestern's words. But anyway, I tried to present this lie to the court by filing something right after I gathered the information from the uh, electric company, but I wasn't allowed to because the attorney that I had had that day had helped to put it in for an appeal, and then he had withdrawn. And the clerk said that nothing can be filed at the lower level because I was going to appeal it. So the case was like wrapped up, closed up, and sent up to here, and then I needed to file there. So I filed for a supplement of the record. Um, it wasn't allowed because Mike Stevens said due process would be violated if that supplemental record was allowed. Supreme Court actually allowed him to lie. Like they had the explanation, they had everything they needed from Northwestern to see that that was a false case that was brought to the lower court. But for some reason, I guess I'm pro se, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know the reason it was not allowed. And so then it went forward, and they can't consider any information that wasn't brought in the lower court. So all of my pictures of the building to show that, how great a shape it's in, all of the um, contradictory statements, I could have proven the city's witnesses in them to have been making. None of that was able to be brought. It was only what was brought at the lower court. So I right now the Supreme Court on October 23rd reiterated the affirmation. So they affirmed the lower court's decision. It gives the city full rights to demolition my building, even though it was declared a nuisance, and they wouldn't allow me to time to fix it, but the city finally did allow me to fix it because on September 23rd of this year, they locked me out of my business and put hasps and padlocks on the outside. I was the only one with keys to the doors. And so therefore we know they didn't clear the buildings and my lights were on. I had been there the night before and I came to work on that Monday night at like 6, a little after, and there's no lights. So I called Northwestern and they came to see why there was an outage. And even on their computer, it showed that I still had electric service there. So the guy's like, I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. And he goes over to the wall and he said, well, the meter's gone. And then he takes the panel off and the wires to my house, to my building have been cut. And so I didn't have any gas service there ever, since earlier years when I owned it. And I mean, not ever, just a few, like, there was no gas service at the time. He said there was a gas leak, and now they had taken the electric, and I don't know why the city is allowed to say that just on a word. Like, this is before court, before a judge's order when they took the gas meter. This is before court, this is after court and an affirmation, but no notice. Both times the Northwestern gave no notice, but this time was important because the electric bill is all I have. And I didn't have gas service before. I don't know if they're allowed to take that meter, but without notice. But the fact is they took the electric service and jeopardized me quite a bit. Without any notices like on the doors or any phone calls or anything like that. Um, the guy that was there to do the emergency, like, because we called for power outage, and he's like I said, his computer showed that it had electric, and it didn't, and he couldn't find the ticket orders, he couldn't find anything showing why. And then a lady got on the phone. She said that there was a letter from the city attorney, and because it's from a city attorney, that they wanted to condemn the building, so they took it. And um, I don't know where I was, but right now where it stands is I only have a few days left, and I don't know what's going to happen because we've invested a lot into this. My original bid to maintain the building, keep the water out, was $6,900. The tax assessment went up, not down, while the whole time they were saying that my building is degrading and all of that. And I was just doing the best I could and trying to do things when they weren't around so they wouldn't arrest me for touching my building. And it was extremely hard. Um, it's still hard. I don't have help to get my things out should they take it. And there's historic um materials on there that are worth money that would help me. They want to put $130,000 of debt toward me just for demolishing it, plus all of the court fees and things like that. I have the transcript that shows that this person fabricated this whole case, and this building's at risk just because of a lie that was allowed to be told. There was never a second inspection interiorly so that the engineer could say that it was sound, like he did the first time. They refused to let him go in, which I think is very telling, because refusal for letting go in like he did the first time when he discovered that the building was safe for inhabitability. It wasn't a danger, and it was just the bricks that they weren't allowing me to fix that needed to be fixed. Um, uh, $6,900 is a lot less than 130,000, and when I'm spending $6,900, which I already have, and I'm defending myself here, and we did put tin on the one side already. The bricks have been fixed almost all the way around the building except for on the parapet wall, which is a danger, but they won't let us get to it because they put monster blocks in the way a long time ago. Um, I filed an intent to sue so that, you know, I could possibly get this stopped. I'm at a point where I absolutely need an attorney. I'm in over my head. October 2nd was their pre-bid meeting, and all the contractors were allowed to access the building without signing a waiver of release, like were trying to require of me when they locked me on my building on September 3rd. They said the only way I could go in was to have that waiver of release. So it would state that I would never hold Scotland accountable for its neglect. So it was past, present, and future neglect, and that I would never ever sue them. And it must have said that a million times on it. It was just very, very long and repetitive, and it said in there even that it was very broad and it included everything and anyone who would sign it. They tried to get my family to sign it. I stood strong and I didn't sign it. I had some people come and go inside and hand me things across the threshold. Um, so they locked me out on the 3rd of September. On the 23rd, the sheriff got a hold of me and he gave me permission to go back in, and here's how he said it. He said there was never any reason for them to lock me out. They didn't have a court order. He had called he said something like, he notified the constable and the mayor that, they are not to arrest me even if I cut their locks off because they were refusing to take them off. So, um, so I cut the locks of tyranny. After that, I couldn't get the one cut that goes upstairs, the stairwell going upstairs. It's a shared stairwell for both of my buildings. And so my business side, I wanted to make sure I got up there that day. They were going to have people coming, and so I was able then I hadn't been able to get it cut. It was a really strong padlock, and so I was able to like bend and manipulate it off the door. I had some help that day. Um, so I got upstairs, and when the sheriff and all of them, the police and the people went in there, when I told them I wanted to make a report because some damage had been done, and they said that that was all part of demolition, and I said, well, that didn't make any sense because it was in litigation, and I didn't think they were allowed to like destroy things until they had like permits and things like that. But um I asked the police to take fingerprints off of the things that had been moved from out of a room into the hallway, and I had asked for the report to be made about the demolition. Someone had like, I don't know, there was plaster in the stairwell, and there's no plaster around that area at all. And I looked back into one of the rooms, and something had been shoved up into the ceiling, and a whole bunch of the ceiling had been knocked down. Um, and then drug out in the hallway, and some of it got to the end of the stairwell. So the bottom line is it's October the 6th, and tomorrow they want to take the asbestos out, And they said once they take the asbestos out, they can demolish it. I just recently put a request into the city to come to the table. For 4.5 years, they refused me meetings, and this is before any bricks fell, before any judge's order to go in and inspect it. The judge's order to go in and inspect it was only for one of the buildings, and then they coupled my other building onto there. So the building that I was trying to work on to and I had permission from the historical society to put metal on it if I needed to, but I've always been wanting to save, just let it be brick, like, because it's historical and the community can't afford to lose this history. um I don't know, it's too emotional for me right now because I just recently got a call from the guy who's wanting to demolish it, and he wants me to get all of my things out, and I don't have the help that I need, but and I don't want to start dismantling my building myself to get the materials like my newer furnace, my walls, my air conditioning unit, um, all the bricks that are worth a whole bunch of money. I could be selling the sandstone and things that I had mentioned earlier to someone was worth. I, Someone from Omaha came up, those things underneath each window, there's 19 of them. He sells for $1,000, and that's darn near $20,000. And I don't know where this is going to lead, but I just I'm in a point where I need an emergency injunction, and I filed it incorrectly. And the judge didn't look at the information. Um, she just compared it to this last time. I thought I filed it correctly, and she ruled against an emergency injunction. She compared it to the Strice House case, which I looked it up, and that one's still standing in Sioux Falls. So, um, I don't know why she compared it to that, and I don't know if that's a good hint for me to look into, but I did look into it, and there's no way that it can end, that it's still standing if the city won't come to the table. So I filed for a mediator. They have the information. I'm waiting to hear if they will or will not sit down with a mediator. But this is multiple times I've tried to get them to sit down, and I've just been refused meeting agendas. I've been refused emergency meetings. I've been refused all of those things. They still haven't done anything about the building, the other building that's falling in a danger, actual physical danger to the public, because that whole wall ripped through the, not whole wall, but a good portion of that wall ripped through the roof of a building. And it's not my building, so they haven't done anything about it. And they obviously don't care for public safety. So this is not about public safety. The theatrics were put there, the barricades were put there before any bricks fell, before any dangers were at all. Now the dangers have all been taken care of. I forgot to mention on October 17th, their code enforcer in front of law enforcement acknowledged that there's no nuisance at my chiropractic business side, and the other building is being taken care of. Like, we're almost, like I said, completely finished with anything that could be a nuisance or a danger over there. And it's barricaded off, so no one's going to get hurt. And I don't have a ongoing business near that one. Um, there's no reason for anybody to walk over there, and not let alone sit there and eat or anything like that. So, um, it could be lifted. The nuisance declaration could be lifted, and the code enforcer is supposed to report when the nuisance is abated, but he instead stated no, he wants to tear it down, or something like, we want to tear it down. It's not about being it and about it. We don't care if it's fixed, he said. We want to tear it down. And something like that. The sheriff repeated it when I asked, well, are you gonna make sure they don't steal my the cornice and all of the expensive materials so I can recoup some cost. And he said it's, and I said, so can you put in something like that it's fixed? And he goes, it's not a, the sheriff himself said, obviously it's not about it being fixed. So my question is, then what is it about? If the building is fixed and it's not about the building, then it's got to be, if it's not about it and it is the building, and then there's another building that it's not about it either. So if it's not about either building, then what is it? Uh, it's those two buildings. And if it's not about that, it's about me personally, or it's about the land. So we have a big problem here. If we don't get rid of this International Property Maintenance Code soon, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. That's something that the legislators, the West River of South Dakota, have been working to try to get gone. A man in faith, you can look that story up. He saved their town from that. Anyway, I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate John Dale a lot. I appreciate Bubba Starts. He's been a tremendous help, even physically helping move some things. And I do need help to harvest my materials should they go forward, and that would be Monday the 10th that they would do it. So this is my last shot. I need an attorney, and sadly, if they are allowed to take it, I need physical help. Thank you. I did contact the governor's office, and I'm waiting to hear back from them because it says that they have to, um, it says in our laws that if the governor is made aware of something like this, that they have to, require of the agencies that are doing these things a written explanation for their actions. And, every written explanation Mr. Stevens has given to these other places, like the Historical Society and to the courts, they're all fabricated. They only include pictures of one small section of one of the buildings, and they don't include any measurements. I gotta stress that, no measurements by their engineer David Boise, no measurements, no physical, analytical, scientific, quantitative facts. There's no facts to it. It was all opinions. And he was even asked by my attorney, what did you base this on? He said he didn't understand the question. What measurements of device, what devices of measurements did you use? He just said that he didn't understand the question. And when pressed by my attorney, he said, well, was it a hunch? And he said, it's an opinion. Uh, it's a he said an educated assumption. He said for 30 years of working that the building probably in the last 2 years has completely degraded to the point of it's falling in. I did have a couple of pictures with me of the interior to show the judge that that's not the case, and he just needed to come back in, and I begged that he would come back in. I guess I've already said that, and I apologize for repetition. This is super stressful, but our rights are at stake. My family, my community is about to suffer irreparable harm, and the only thing, nothing good can come out of that. And I appreciate you. Thank you.